The most painful moment for a narcissist is not exposure, not a dramatic scene, and not even when someone walks away. Their true weakness shows itself when the person they rely on stops playing by their rules. They may try to belittle, to raise their voice, to make you feel guilty, or suddenly switch into the role of a victim, asking for sympathy. But all of it loses its power the moment you no longer react. Their influence never truly belonged to them. It was always built on your response, your attention, and your willingness to engage. Once you break that cycle even once, the balance shifts. Where before you felt cornered, you begin to feel calm and steady. Where their figures seemed towering and unshakable, you suddenly see the truth. It all stood only on the foundation of your emotions. A narcissist has no strength of their own. They take it from you. And that is why indifference becomes the most powerful form of resistance. Many people spend years trapped in the illusion that a narcissist controls everything and always comes out on top. It seems as if they know your weaknesses better than you do and will exploit them endlessly. But that is only an appearance. Their supposed power is fragile, and it collapses the moment you stand firm. The true place of a narcissist is not in control, but in the helplessness they feel when they can no longer force you to play their game. A narcissist does not live through their own emotions. They live through yours. Inside, there is an emptiness, and to fill that void, they reach outward, searching for a source of energy. Every time you start to justify yourself, to explain what is already obvious, to prove your point, it is as if you open the door and invite them in. For you, it might feel like defending yourself or restoring fairness. For them, it is a signal. I'm still in control. Carl Jung once wrote that the human personality is made up of the conscious I and the vast shadow of the unconscious, where we hide what we refuse to acknowledge. For a narcissist, that shadow is overwhelming. Everything they deny in themselves. Weakness, fear, dependence, vulnerability gets pushed onto others. This is why they constantly need a reaction. It's as if they unload their shadow onto you, forcing you to live out what they cannot face within themselves. Any emotional outburst becomes a victory for them. Imagine an arena where you are the only opponent, and they stand at the center, waiting for the crowd to respond. If you shout, argue, or try to prove your case, they feel triumphant. But if your emotions do not ignite, if their words crash against the wall of your calm, they are confronted with the very thing they fear the most, the emptiness inside. Here lies the essence of the problem. A narcissist cannot exist without someone else's attention. They may project confidence or cold detachment, but behind that facade hides a deep dependency. Their so-called strength is nothing more than a reflection of your energy. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And that is the key. Your emotions are not only the fuel that sustains them, but also a mirror that shows you exactly where they managed to touch a nerve. The true place of a narcissist is not in confrontation, not in exposure, and not in dramatic conflict. Their real place is the moment they collide with your silence, with the fact that you are no longer willing to carry their shadow. They lose their grip the instant you stop playing along and claim your right to be whole, no longer a stage for their performance. So how do you actually take back control? The answer lies in a set of core tools, practical steps that quietly shift the balance of power. The first tool is indifference. A narcissist does not thrive on love or recognition. What fuels them is your attention in any form. Anger, frustration, even confusion all serve as energy that covers the emptiness inside. This is why indifference becomes the most powerful weapon. Imagine the scene. They start a heated argument, accusing you of something you never did, pushing you to defend yourself. Normally, you might react, explain, or try to prove your point. But if, instead, you remain calm, they run into something they cannot process: emptiness. There is nothing to feed their ego, and that is when their hidden weakness begins to show through the mask of confidence. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist persists." Every time we argue with a narcissist, we reinforce their script. Indifference is not passivity. It is an active decision to cut off their supply of fuel. The second tool is the use of calm, short responses. Narcissists love endless conversations that lead nowhere. They create loops: accusation, justification, followed by yet another attack. The way out of this loop is to answer with the simplest words: yes, no. That doesn't work for me. This kind of communication denies them the space they crave. They expect lengthy explanations, emotional outbursts, or defensive speeches. Instead, a minimal, steady reply cuts their strategy short. The key is your tone. No irritation, no sarcasm, no bitterness. When you respond like this, the strings they used to pull begin to snap. Think of it like a chess match. Your opponent plans a complex move, but you answer with one simple, steady step that dismantles the entire strategy. Interest fades because the game no longer works. The third tool is setting clear boundaries. One of the most unsettling things for a narcissist is meeting someone who has strong and steady limits. When you calmly say, "I'm not willing to discuss this," or "that tone is not acceptable to me," you remove their chance to impose their reality onto you. Jung explained that maturity comes from recognizing the self, the inner center that defines who we are. Boundaries are the living expression of that self. A narcissist has no real boundaries of their own, which is why they constantly invade the space of others. But when you clearly define your rules, they encounter something they cannot break. This is not a fight, not a debate. It is a quiet statement of fact. This doesn't work with me. And that is precisely what takes away their power. The fourth tool is ignoring manipulations. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. But in this dynamic, silence can be one of the strongest responses. Every manipulation is designed to make you react. If you do not, the entire structure collapses. They might try confusion tactics, sudden devaluation, or even turn to their own version of silent treatment. But when you choose silence deliberately, the rules of the game change. You are no longer an object for them to control. You are a person who decides where to place your attention. Imagine them throwing a ball toward you again and again, but you refuse to catch it. Each time they try, their frustration grows, until eventually they realize it's useless. And the fifth tool is shifting your focus back onto yourself. A narcissist will constantly try to move the center of your world onto them. Their goal is for you to think about them, to worry about their reaction, to live by their moods. But the real way to put them in their place is to reclaim the right to be the main character of your own life. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this?" the better question becomes, "What do I want right now?" That shift of focus breaks their hold. Jung often emphasized that the path to wholeness always leads inward. And in relationships like this, it becomes even more crucial. The more you concentrate on your own desires, goals, and feelings, the less space remains for someone else's games. Picture this. They demand explanations, they stage another scene. Rather than going through the same discussion for the 100th time, you answer calmly, "This is what I choose to do now," and then turn your attention to what matters to you. In that moment, you step out of their script and take back control. And now, let's look at how a narcissist actually reacts when you stop playing by their rules. When you stop playing by their rules, the very first reaction is usually shock. They are used to every word striking you, every accusation pulling you into defense, every bit of pressure sparking conflict. And suddenly, the familiar script no longer works. For them, it feels like losing the ground beneath their feet. The first reaction you'll often see is devaluation. They might say something like, "You've overrated yourself. Without me, you're nothing," or "People only pretend to respect you, but no one really does." Words like these create the illusion of power, but behind them is panic. They are striking at your sense of worth, hoping you'll rush to defend yourself and prove them wrong. If you take the bait, they gain what they want. But if you remain calm and refuse to play along, their words lose weight and collapse into emptiness. The second reaction is pressure and provocation. They may raise their voice, threaten to walk away, or say something harsh just to trigger you. In their mind, it's a contest. Whoever loses composure first loses. But your strength is not in shouting louder, it's in refusing to enter the contest at all. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." This is exactly what happens here. Instead of staring at their performance, you turn inward, and their pressure loses its power. The third reaction is a sudden shift into the role of the victim. When direct pressure doesn't work, they may say, "You don't understand me, I just wanted you close." Or even, "After everything I've done for you, now you turn away." This tactic aims straight at empathy, trying to stir guilt and pull you back into the cycle of explanations and defenses. But it's important to remember, pity in this form is simply another way to hold control. If you let it work, you're back inside their script. The fourth reaction shows itself over time. The experience of helplessness. At first they switch tactics from shouting to tears, from devaluation to persuasion. But if you continue to stand firm, no reacting, no defending, no explaining, they are forced to face what they fear most, their own helplessness. Their energy, once aimed at you, folds back onto them. And then the emptiness they've worked so hard to hide begins to break through. Jung wrote that we all fear facing the shadow, the part of ourselves we would rather deny. For a narcissist, that shadow is enormous. Fear of loneliness, the sense of being unneeded, the dread of insignificance without control over others. When you stop feeding them your energy, they are left to face that shadow on their own. And that is the moment they are truly put in their place. And finally, the fifth and most important part is your position. Putting them in their place does not mean humiliating them, seeking revenge, or proving that you are smarter. It means holding a steady stance where they can no longer pull your strings. You stop giving them what they came for, your reaction. And in that, their defeat is complete. With time, they may distance themselves, look for someone else, or even try to return. But those returns carry no power if you remain grounded in calm control. What ultimately breaks them is not a dramatic fight, but your indifference and the inner wholeness that no longer depends on their approval. So in the end, a narcissist is not truly put in their place when you argue loudly, or when you try to prove you are right. They are put in their place the moment they no longer control you. Their entire power rests only on your reaction. Everything they do is aimed at drawing out emotion, anger, shame, guilt, fear. But the instant you stop feeding them your attention, the mask begins to crack. Think of it with a simple metaphor. A narcissist is like an actor who needs a stage and an audience. As long as you sit in the theater, reacting, applauding, even shouting, they feel significant. But the moment the audience leaves, the entire performance loses its meaning. They are left alone, facing empty rows. And that is their true place. Powerless without a crowd to play to, Carl Jung once wrote, "What is not made conscious returns to us as fate." For the narcissist, this means one thing. Their constant drive to control others is not strength, but an escape from their own shadow. For you, it is a reminder that freedom begins the moment you stop playing someone else's role and choose to be yourself. The lesson is simple. You don't need to fight, to shout, or to prove anything. You only need to hold your ground and stop following their rules. In that quiet steadiness, in that indifference to their provocations, lies your real strength. Try applying these methods in your own life. You'll notice the change. Anxiety fades. The sense of constant pressure dissolves, and a calm confidence begins to take its place. With it comes the realization that your value is no longer defined by them. And remember this: true victory is not destroying them, but stepping out of their game entirely. That is the moment they are finally in their place, where they have nothing left to control.